All right, so in the last session, we were looking at why our action hook was printing in the wrong spot. It was printing the word lucky before the widget altogether. We're hooking into a do action inside a shortcode. And so it wants to run immediately. So what we're doing is we're printing this long before we're returning the output of the actual shortcode. And so that's just not working. So what we need to use is something in PHP called an output buffer. An output buffer says, I'm going to run some code now that's going to want to print. Don't print. Save it, and I'll get it later. So I'm running this function right here called ob_start, output buffer start. And then right after it, I'm taking ob_get_clean and stashing it in $output. So all of the stuff that wanted to be printed in my do action is instead getting stashed in $output to be printed wherever I want. The do action is usually not for your own benefit. If you're putting in a do action someplace for a hook to happen, it's usually so somebody else can extend your code at some other time. And so you sort of have to think ahead. Where might somebody someday want to put something in my code? So I put 4 of them in here before the UL, inside the top of the UL, inside the bottom of the UL, and after the UL, because I'm anticipating somebody is going to want to stick a list item in. Maybe at the top, maybe at the bottom, or maybe before, maybe after. You asked, basically, how do you know where to put your do actions, right? And you sort of have to think ahead and read the mind of whoever might want to be editing your code in the future. Or not editing your code per se, but affecting the output of your code without having to hack your code. The whole point of an action hook is to allow people to change what's happening without actually hacking what you wrote, so that you can do updates later and nothing will ever break unless you remove action hooks. And so really, it's totally arbitrary. You get to decide, where do I want to allow people to do stuff? So starting from the top, we have a shortcode. We're taking ID. We're declaring output. We're giving our variables, or our query variables. We're saying if the ID is numeric, then get the ID. If it's not, then limit by 1 and order by random. So we get a random one. Send the query. And then, this is Chad's. That's why it looks so weird. Post per page is 1, order by random. We send the query. And then we're putting in a hook, do action, before lucky staff member, but we're wrapping it in an output buffer so that rather than just spitting it out to the screen as soon as it happens, we're storing it in a variable so we can do something with it later. We start our unordered list, and we've made another hook. There's our loop, which is just getting the title. Inside the loop, we could do anything we wanted. We could get the image, we could get the permalink and link to it, we could get the meta values, whatever you want to do. The same stuff we did in the other templates and plugins that we've made. Now we have another hook, then we're ending our unordered list, and we have yet another hook. Then we reset post data, so that if we stepped on the page's post data, it fixes it, and we return output. Then we're actually turning that into a shortcode with the add shortcode function. I happen to name my function and my shortcode the same thing, but what you write here is the name of the shortcode that's going to get used by the end user out there, and then the second one is the name of your function. Then just for fun, we made a silly little function that hooks into one of the hooks in our shortcode. And it prints the word lucky. And there we are. Any questions about all this? Best way is a tough question. The question is, what's the best way to do a hook that's inside a list, an unordered list? It needs to be in an LI. And so you can enforce that by printing an li around it. I tend to err on the side of making the developer do what's right, because for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to. I can't immediately think of a reason, but I'd rather put the onus on the developer to put the list items in there.